Welcome to the Inspire and Ignite series with Safe States Alliance. Each month, we bring you a two-part series focused on innovations in injury and violence prevention. At the beginning of the month, we release a pre-recorded webinar you can watch at any time. Later in the month, we host a facilitated conversation for practitioners to come together and brainstorm opportunities to strengthen the field. For more information about this series this month, use the QR codes at the end of the video. Thanks for watching.
My name is Maria Altonen. I work with the Virginia Department of Health. We are here today to talk to you all about a really exciting program that we've started, Real Talk with Real Life, which is a domestic violence prevention project that works specifically with men who have caused harm. How this project came to be, I was providing a training for real life around domestic violence, mostly working with survivors. And someone in the group asked what type of services and programming there is available for men. And at the time, there really wasn't anything to share. There's really not a lot available in Virginia. And so we decided that there was no reason we couldn't develop something. So that started the process of us working with consultants to develop what we now have as Real Talk with Real Life, which is a 10-week course that we provide in a variety of different settings. And so I'm going to turn things over to my colleague to talk a little bit more about our project.
Hey everyone, my name is Tommy. I work with Real Life, which is a local nonprofit organization in Richmond, Virginia. And Real Life actually has two parts of the organization. We're a local recovery community organization and offer 11 recovery houses in the Richmond area. And for those coming from incarceration or suffering from homelessness or substance use disorder. And we have a second part of Real Life, which is our violence prevention initiative. We work with those at risk for gun violence and also the domestic violence side. And I work on the domestic violence prevention side. And so what that looks like is we go into several jails within the community, of about five different jails in the Richmond area and surrounding areas, as well as we have classes in the community and offer a evening virtual class for folks that are working and can't get to the classes in the community. And so we also have classes in 2 and about to be 3 different DOC facilities. And it's had an amazing impact on the guys that we work with and the guys that we serve. You know, I've been able to witness them sustain and maintain healthy relationships, gain relationships back with their kids, gain relationships back with family members, family members they haven't spoke with in decades. You know, we started working with a guy at a DOC facility in September. And this man, he's an older gentleman and has not spoken with any of his 5 children since the 1980s. And since we started working with him in September, he's managed to have a relationship with not only all 4 of his daughters, but his son as well. And it's just had an amazing impact. And I get to run into guys in the community. I get to have them come up to me and tell me about their accomplishments or that they got visitation rights with their children or that their relationship with their, fiance or girlfriend or wife is going great. And it's just been amazing, the impact that this program has had. And we've got some guys that we've worked with that are trained peer facilitators that are going to tell you more about the program.
Good day. My name is David Carmichael, and I'm one of the peer facilitators with the Real Life program here at Lawrenceville. I'm honored to speak about the curriculum and the first 5 sessions we're going to introduce. And we start out on session 1, getting grounded, and we're looking at laying out the goals and objectives to the other men. And we look at the root causes of behavior, such as drug abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and mental health. We look at how our behavior affected people that we cared about and around us. And we take a first look into anger and the physiological changes that take place. We also initially give everyone a survey so that we can track their progress throughout the program to see their growth. Then we move into session 2. We learn to deal with anger to stop abuse and why anger may be a natural biological response to fear, but it often has to do with power. We look at the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex effects on the body and how we can better control our anger. We learn how to express our anger in a non-destructive way. And we move on to lesson 3, and we look at regulating emotions, and we look at the 7 steps of abuse, and we make everyone aware of it, the activators, the triggers, and we expose the underlying control issues that often are associated with anger and abuse. Next, we'll look at session 4, and we'll address trauma. And when we're underlying trauma, one of the largest factors in the prison population is adverse childhood experiences. So we spend some time on that, and we stress or how we can take and use stress in a more positive way by building coping skills, because we're often overwhelmed with stress and our ability to express our emotions. We know that it is uncomfortable to often talk about this type of trauma, and we understand that we're as vulnerable as the people we're speaking with, but we understand at the end there's a great reward and it can transform your life. And lastly, on session 5, we look at the myth of masculinity, and we understand that substance abuse is responsible for about 90% of domestic abuse. And it's how it affects your brain and your reasoning. And we look at our strengths and weaknesses on how we can deal with this and become a better human being. Alexithymia is one of the other things we look at. And this is a dysfunctional emotional awareness into our interpersonal and social relationships and our inability to ID and express our emotions that we are ourself, our experiences. So these are some of the beginning steps that we learn. And thank you, and you have a good day.
Hey, good morning. My name is Tron Gibbs. I'll be finishing off where Mr. Carmichael ended. We'll be talking about sections 6 through 10, and we start off with healthy relationships. And one of the main things about healthy relationships is we know how to identify what was unhealthy, but not what was healthy. And behavior is a key aspect of that. And we utilize the difference between men and women. Like, men use words to communicate facts, while women use their words to connect. So we understand what the relationship is about and who we're in a relationship with, how we fit in that system, it's always going to make for a healthy relationship. So we need to learn how to develop those skills. And all good relationships are predicated on trust and open communication and the ability to demonstrate empathy, taking someone else's pain and putting it in your heart, and communicating acceptance. They're okay the way that they are, and you're okay the way that you are. We have to give each other grace in that situation. And 7, skillship, relationship skill building, emotions. How do we see ourselves, but better yet, how do we see other people? That is something that we need to know so we can understand our behaviors better. Communication is such a major and vital part of any relationship that you have. So we go over the major principles of communication. What you send, the sender, the message, and the receiver. And one of the big things that we learned about communication is it's not about what we say, but rather what the other persons believe that we meant. And we have barriers and things that we communicate, how we're feeling at the moment, the environment that we're in, the sound. So all of those things can come across in communication, and we can't take that for granted. Conflict resolution, because you're going to have conflict in any relationship that you're involved with. But how do you mitigate that? How do you navigate that with excellence? And that's something that we talk about. Are we competing in this environment? Are we avoiding? Are we compromising or accommodating? But what we're trying to get to is a collaborative effort between both people. taking responsibility is a major thing. And this is the maintenance aspect of the relationship where we get into accountability and responsibility. We can no longer have excuses for prior bad behavior. So we're looking for solutions rather than blame. And we got to be comfortable with those uncomfortable situations and conversations that got to be had in a relationship. And also, again, give yourself some grace. When we make a mistake in a relationship, we have to be able to offer ourselves some grace, because that's what real men do. Session 9, building resilience. The things that's going to happen to you in that relationship, how are you going to bounce back from that? What does that look like? How do you deal with stress? We give a great analogy of having a sports car and putting the accelerator to the floor and you redline it. Only you have the ability to take your foot off the gas. You have to do that. We can't live in that heightened state, but we've been accustomed to that for so long. So we breathe. We have to be mindful and have these techniques in place. And lastly, we talk about prevention planning, managing the changes that's going to come about in the relationships, whether it's stressful, the daily grind of being in a relationship, and the techniques that we need. Timeout is a huge thing, but let's agree on how that timeout actually looks. How does it work? And do we come to agreement on that? Support. Life is going to come at you 100 miles per hour. It's your response to it that counts. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John C., and I'm a real-life domestic violence prevention facilitator here at Lawrenceville Correctional Center. Today, I'd like to take a few moments and explain why this program is so near and dear to my heart. And in order to do so, let me give you a little bit of my backstory. See, I grew up in the 80s and early 90s when domestic violence was a taboo topic, and it was really prevalent in my household. But my siblings and myself were taught that what happens in the household stays in the household. So all that trauma that we experienced, watching our parents abuse one another, mentally, physically, emotionally, went unaddressed. And the last straw one night with my parents was I witnessed my dad backhand my mother while she was washing dishes. And I jumped on his back. And at that time, my mother picked up a knife and tried to stab my father, but she didn't because she didn't want to stab me. So as we fought him and got him out the house, at this point, my mother realized she needed to get a divorce. So at 13, my parents divorced. However, none of this unaddressed childhood trauma, anger, fear, abandonment issues was ever addressed. So naturally, it rolled over into my adult relationships. I met a beautiful girl in 2000 named Mary, and we were together for 3.5 years, engaged for 1. But ultimately, due to my unaddressed issues, we broke up. And during this breakup, I was fighting for a relationship that was unrepairable. And I was, to be honest, out of control, but in the moment, I thought I was in control. So while ultimately fighting for this relationship, all this unaddressed childhood trauma, anger, abandonment issues, fear came out in the most unhealthy way possible. When one night during an argument, I ultimately shot and killed my ex-fiancée, Mary. This isn't ever easy to talk about, but I do so in the hopes of it helps someone else. I came to prison at 23, and I've been locked up for 22 years, seeking answers to the questions of how I allowed myself to be in a situation to harm someone that I loved and cared about. And through programming, counseling, therapy, I got some of those answers. But it wasn't until 2024 when I came to Lawrenceville and I seen a real life domestic violence prevention flyer, and I signed up, that I received the final answers to my questions. So I went to the gym, myself and about 100 of my peers, and we took this training with Dr. Scarborough, TJ, Tommy, and Miss Maria. And as we're going through the curriculum and learning the training, I had a light bulb moment in session 5, myths of masculinity. They talked about this word alexithymia, which is when one has the inability to describe what they're feeling due to the trauma they've experienced. And I realized that was me growing up because we never talked about our feelings in the household. My next light bulb moment was the very next session, session 6, where we talk about healthy relationships and the 6 stages of intimacy. So as they're describing these stages, I realized at 44 years old, I had never truly had a healthy relationship. And my initial reaction was I was very sad because at 44, I should have had some healthy relationships. But then I got excited because now I've been taught what a healthy relationship looks like. The fact is, I can't change what I've done. I cannot replace the precious life I took. But what I can do is make a conscious decision to change myself and hopefully others by sharing this real life curriculum. And that's what real life does. It gives me the platform to take my lived experiences and share it with others. Some of us just need to know better in order to do better. I've had the fortunate 4 classes with over 60 men that I've taught this curriculum to. And it never seems to amaze me that in each class, you can see the light bulbs go off for these other men. So I know this program is not only helping those of us inside these walls, it's also helping men and women outside these walls. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Aziz. I also want to share my experience with domestic violence and why I got involved with real life, real talk. Um, I experienced domestic violence when I was young. I was about 5 years old, and my mom was attacked by a boyfriend. And this attack it injured my mom in such a way that it took her many, many years to recover from it. It changed the course of our family's future. It changed my life forever. And then in 2024, I had another close family member go through domestic violence as well. I was actually on the phone with her, and she was attacked by an old boyfriend. So I knew that I needed to do something. I wanted to do something because I didn't want her and her young son, who was also 5 at the time, to experience what I went through when I was that age and experience what my family went through when I was that age. So I got involved with this program, and I went through the training, went through the 10 weeks. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot. I learned that, I had some underlying issues that I didn't realize that I had, and I wanted to do more. So I took the facilitator training and had the opportunity to touch others' lives. And I've taught this class 4 sessions now, 5 sessions now, and the impact it's had on these men has been incredible. Something that's been asked in the class, one guy in particular, he wanted to know why he made the decisions that he made, why he thought the way that he thought. And this very program gave him those answers. They helped him work through the issues that he had suffered from when he was young, the trauma that he experienced when he was young, and it helped him understand the why in his actions. And some other gentleman that was in my class as well, he he said that he had a mask on 40 years. He's taken 100 programs, and this was the first program that allowed him to take his mask off and to be who he really wanted to be. This program has allowed these men to stop making excuses, to look at themselves and their actions in a real way, to allow them to take responsibility and accountability for the choices that they've made and how their brains work, how they think. And so it's this program is vital. It's vital for the men inside these walls who have perpetrated domestic violence and other violent acts, and it's vital to the community. And thank you for your time.
All right. We're so happy to be able to come to Lawrenceville today so that you all could hear directly from a lot of the guys that we're working with. We are only able to cover just a short snippet of what the program entails and looks like. But we would love to have the opportunity to speak with other folks if you have any interest in working with men who have caused harm or bringing domestic violence prevention programming to your locality or state, something that we would love to have other opportunities to talk about. So please reach out to us, and thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about our program today.